Frankie's Adventures in Petlandia, written by Steve Cleverly, illustrated by Katya Hammond. Frankie lived in Hope Mills and dreamt of being a star, with his very own TV show and chauffeur-driven car. But being cute and furry made stardom rather tough, especially as the only words he knew were,
"Woof, rough."
Feeling brave, he folded up his PJs in a flannel, along with some ideas for his Frankie YouTube channel. Fumbling in the darkness, he scrawled a doggy note, then kissed Macy and Maddie, and went to get his coat. Scampering through the moonlit streets with thoughts of being wealthy, Frankie stopped beside a sign and thought,
"I'll wake a Ralphie."
Pulling out his eye bone, he posed and took a snap, then headed to the airport while squinting at his map. Frankie was excited because he'd never flown before, unless you count that time he slammed a laptop on his palm. And as the plane took off, he thought of A-list towns and mutts, while trying to squish his nose into a teeny bag of nuts. When Frankie got to Hollywoof, he set up several meets, but most of them went wrong because he tinkled on the seats. And even though he tried his best, the top dogs weren't impressed.
"We've seen your act before, kid, and look how you're dressed."
With failure after failure, Frankie's confidence was shrinking. But then he saw a saxophone, which kind of got him thinking.
"I read to learn some new ricks and really make me rhyme, and then I'll rake some radios and roast them all on rhyme."
Meanwhile, back in Hope Mills, Macy found a note.
"My job means he'll be famous? What a silly goat."
But suddenly Maddie looked up and saw Frankie on the news. He'd become an online superstar with 50 million views.
"It seems those can learn new tricks,"
Macy thought out loud, and Maddie started laughing. They both felt very proud. There was Frankie on a chat show, tootling away, while teetering on a unicycle doing dog ballet. Soon the world was going wild for Frankie's jolly tunes. You could even buy a storybook and see him in cartoons. He bought a doggy mansion and a limo and a yacht. He even met the president and partied quite a lot.
"Nice to meet you, Frankie."
Other doggies lined up to shake Frankie by the paw, and scripts for pet-based movies came tumbling through the door. He'd sit and count his money while lounging on his throne. But when he wasn't working, he'd often be alone. Because he felt so lonely, Frankie bought more stuff. But even though he had it all, it was never quite enough. He tried some doggy yoga, which he thought might make him happy. But that just tied him up in knots and made him sore and snappy. Then suddenly it hit him as he chewed his oldest bone. What Frankie wanted most was to be snuggled back at home. Yes, he'd miss his fancy life, the palm trees and his chauffeur. But none of that compared to cuddling Macy on the sofa. He called off all his concerts, and he gave away his things. But all flights home were fully booked, so he clung onto the wing. Hanging on for dear life as the plane took to the skies made Frankie think of tummy rubs, and tears welled in his eyes. Soaring over Hope Mills, Frankie thought,
"I've had a route, but Rome is where the rart is, and I need a parachute."
Fumbling in his suitcase, he found a sparkly gown. Then he used it as he leapt off to sort of slow him down. Tumbling through the fluffy clouds was really quite a rush, but Frankie had to slow down or he'd soon be doggy mush. Just then he saw a mattress dumped upon a roof, so he steered himself towards it and landed with a
"Woof."
Jumping into Maddie's arms, Frankie cried with joy. Then Macy squeezed the squeaker in a squishy, squashy toy.
"Rame is pretty rapid, but ruggling is really rest,"
thought Frankie as he curled up to enjoy a well-earned rest. Miles away in Hollywoof, things were much the same, and countless pets arrived each day to search for wealth and fame. They often spoke about the dog who played the saxophone, and how he'd left it all behind because he missed his home. But Frankie wasn't bothered that he'd given fame the shove, because his trip had taught him that what really counts is love. The end.